I also think Kemba Walker, his gritty, sort of tough persona is going to fit in perfectly with the Celtics. But I also think this is ripe with drama because the Celtics were so hyped and had so many assets, and they still do have a ton of assets. But with Kyrie Irving, they didn't do anything, and they were actually better without him. If Kemba Walker goes in there and they're back to being a 60-win team like they were a couple years ago, bam, that's a lot of controversy, and I think that's really damning for Kyrie Irving as well.
Agreed. I love the move though. If Kemba Walker, let's put it like this. For me personally, the more I can see Kemba Walker, the better.
Totally.
And so I'm going to see a lot more of him in Boston than
Definitely.
I was going to see of him in Charlotte. Now, while I'm always going to advocate for a guy staying where he was drafted, especially in small markets, especially where they don't get superstars to come there and they have to sort of home grow it, so to speak. This hurts Charlotte tremendously that he is leaving, but I think it makes Boston more interesting. I think it makes them better, and I find that more compelling because at the end of the day, Charlotte at their best is not going to be competitive in a way that Boston will be competitive. And so I think this makes the East so much more wide open. I think it spells the end for Kyrie Irving in Boston.
Oh, certainly. I think that was already the case.
Exactly, which is one reason why it was such a big deal to try and get him in there
Totally.
for the Celtics. But I think they're better with Kemba Walker than they were with Kyrie Irving.
Kyrie Irving's just such a tough guy to analyze in terms of pairing him with other guys. I've tried to break this down as articulately as I can, but when you're looking at the actual schematics of what the Cleveland Cavaliers were doing, the Cleveland Cavaliers, when they won the championship, LeBron James was playing point guard, and Kyrie Irving was playing a position that doesn't really exist in the league. He was playing secondary half-court point guard. So LeBron James would bring the ball up the court, initiate the offense, initiate the secondary fast break, and if there was a pick and roll to be had or there was some transition opportunities to be had, LeBron was the creator. But when that wasn't available, then boom, you back it out a little bit, you give it to Kyrie, you let him create. It's an isolation situation for him. He can drive, he can dish, he can get to the rim, but Kyrie Irving's getting to be an isolation player more often than not, with also playing with a guy who's a facilitator. That's where Kyrie Irving's at his best. I think when you want him to have the ball in his hands every time, you want to inbound the ball to Kyrie Irving, that's fine because Kyrie Irving has perhaps the best handle in the league and is one of the most skilled guys in the league, and he's one of the best finishers in the league.
I think given his height, he is unequivocally the best finisher in the league.
Right. Kyrie Irving's just also not that interested in passing. And so you have a whole bunch of guys that are just standing around. I think with the pieces that the Celtics have, I agree with you, but I also think Kemba's going to have to become a more willing passer as well.
He is I should have I made a bold statement, and I should clarify. I don't think that Kemba Walker is a better player than Kyrie Irving is.
No, but you think the Celtics will be better than fourth in the East this year?
I do.
That's not outrageous at all.
And I think it has a lot to do with personality. And I'm not talking about, is he funny? Is he serious? I'm talking about basketball personality. I think the dog persona of compete and ferocious energy.
And he's a Northeast guy.
That Kemba brings to the table it suits the Celtics historically, and I think it suits the Celtics today. It suits, when you pair him with like a Marcus Smart and Jason Tatum, I think all of a sudden you got a group of guys that all comes at it the same way. And I don't know if Kyrie comes at it the same way. Kyrie's not, every dude is competitive. I'm not saying that, but he's very finesse in the way that he goes about it. He's not as much of a defender as as Kemba is to me, and I think that is the calling card of the Boston Celtics, and so I think he just fits in with what they do. Again, basketball personality-wise, better.
This weekend when this hits, like when July 1st rolls around, this is going to be just the dominoes that are going to fall because there's so many gambles that are going to have to be made. Because now, if Kemba really does sign with the Celtics, that could be the first domino because then Kyrie Irving is for sure out, which I think we already knew. But then Kyrie Irving is probably going to be the guy that has to decide on his destination because Kyrie's going to he has to go somewhere else, right? So if he ends up with the New Jersey Nets, which seems like the inside track, Brooklyn Nets, which seems like the inside track now, that's fine. But then Is Kevin Durant willing to go there to join him? I'm not sure. Is Kawhi Leonard? I doubt it. Then who else can you get? If you don't get anybody else, are you good enough to do it by yourself? Because I think Kyrie on the Nets is only a scotch better than D'Angelo Russell on the Nets. I think that the Nets are like the 6th seed instead of the 7th seed with Kyrie Irving. I don't think they're that much better if they don't get another guy. But that initial who goes where, then that's going to be the thing that puts the ball in motion. I think we both agree Klay Thompson's going to stay with the Warriors. But who knows what Kevin Durant's going to do. But it's going to depend on what Kawhi Leonard does. It's going to depend on what Kyrie Irving does. I know you hate talking about the speculation part of this, but this is what makes this so fascinating, because the fact that we don't know what these guys are going to do, that's what is going to be the part that's just the drama. That's where it comes from over the weekend.
The drama over the weekend comes from figuring out whether or not I'm going to mow the lawn or whether I'm going to stay in the deck. Though that's the drama of the weekend.
Well, if it keeps raining, you might get out of both.
Wake me up on July the 3rd and tell me who's where. And then when they're there, then we can talk about it. It's Tutel Nuanez, 102.9 ESPN Radio. Quick break, come back. David Ortiz, the individual purportedly behind all of this, has been arrested. We will talk a little bit about that and this just very bizarre unfolding. Also, MLB All-Stars coming up after this.
Les Schwab is proud to introduce 2 of our best tires ever, just in time for summer. There's our exclusive Reputation, a high-mileage premium passenger tire we believe has the quietest, most comfortable ride ever. Or our exceptionally quiet and smooth all-season traction tire, the Open Range AT. Get $50 off alignment when you purchase a set of 4 Open Range AT or Reputation tires. Book an appointment today at leschwab.com. Les Schwab Tires. Doing the right thing matters. Cannot be combined with other offers. Limited time only. See details at leschwab.com.
On Russell, across from the fairgrounds.
Canyon River Golf Club is a must for any golfer in western Montana. Tucked away in a spectacular setting along the Clark Fork River in East Missoula, Canyon River offers one of Montana's best championship golf experiences. And Canyon River is happy to announce their new fleet of golf carts, which include the Shark Experience, an interactive GPS giving dynamic distances and touchscreen interaction to help you play your best.
Special spice.
At the Montana Club, our goal is to create a menu of mouth-watering food with variety to satisfy any craving. From the garden-fresh ingredients in our salads to our succulent, perfectly grilled Montana Club Angus steaks, we take pride in every detail that goes into preparing your food. Top off your meal with a premium cocktail, wine, or microbrew. Come as you are and satisfy your craving with our home-style breakfast, lunch, and dinner at the Montana Club on Brooks and North Reserve, Missoula.
Hey there, Colter Nuanez from Tutel Nuanez 102.9 ESPN Missoula, here with Tom from Aspen Sound. Tom got me a great deal on an automatic car starter this winter. Now it's summer. What sort of stuff you guys got going on down there, Tom?
Well, Colter, coming into the summertime, we're picking up on the window tinting front. So if you need your windows tinted, give us a call. We'll get you scheduled up. Boats and ATVs are starting to come in full swing, and we're also starting to see the hot rods come out to play. Anything audio related, let us know. We'll get you taken care of.
Feel the music at Aspen Sound. It's a crisp fall morning. Time for your daily pumpkin soy latte. As you wait for your coffee, you get a buzz. No, it's not your boss wanting extra whipped cream, but your ADT video doorbell. It's a package. Your new latte machine. No more $5 PSLs. Barista service. Brought to you by ADT. Designing and installing a smart home just for you. Backed by best-in-class 24/7 protection. Learn more at ADT.com. ADT. Real protection. License information available at ADT.com.
ESPN Missoula Sports Center.
Good afternoon. Ryan Tutel, Colton Nuanez, ESPN Sports Center. After nearly 3 decades coaching basketball at Carroll College, revered head coach Gary Turcotte announced his retirement Thursday. Turcotte served as the head men's basketball coach at Carroll for 19 seasons, piling up 376 wins, 7 Frontier Conference championships, and 7 NAIA National Tournament appearances. Also, a trip to the 2005 NAIA Final Four. He announced his first retirement in 2009. Very Tutel-like to have multiple retirements, only to join Rachel Sayer's staff for the women's team the following year. He has spent the last 8 seasons coaching the Carroll College women, including helping last year's team to 26 wins, the Frontier Conference title, and an appearance in the national tournament.
Back on the road, the Missoula Osprey won for the first time on the road in 11 days. They won in Billings last night. That's their first win of this current road trip. They won 7-2 in the Magic City. Mustangs took the first 2 games of the series in Missoula, only to lose the next 2. Missoula climbed to 6-7 on the season so far, thanks to 2 hits and 2 RBI each from Cesar Garcia and Kevin LaChance. Missoula plays for the 7th straight night tonight against the Mustangs. First pitch, 6:35, and the action can be heard right here, 102.9 ESPN Missoula.
Big Papi is going to be okay, and that is about the only good thing about all of this stuff. It's Tutel Nuanez, 102.9 ESPN Radio. Broadcasting live from the Kurtz Polaris studios. Kurtz Polaris at 2904 West Broadway in Missoula, Highway 83, and Sealy online at kurtzpolaris.com. You can listen online via the stream available thanks to Opportunity Bank. Your local bank, your opportunity, 102.9ESPN.com is the website where you can go to listen live. So, Coulter, Victor Hugo Gomez has been detained in the Caribbean. He is believed to have been the fugitive that was finally located and arrested, that was ultimately behind the hiring of hitmen, or at least a hitman that ended up shooting David Ortiz in the back in the Dominican Republic a couple weeks ago. So his arrest and the arrest of at least one other person, I don't know if that completes all of the people that have been suspects or under investigation in association with this thing, but this is at least the purported buck starter, so to speak, where the person who came up and decided that they were going to try and perpetuate this act. Victor Hugo Gomez has denied that Big Papi was who this was intended to be after, that there's a case of mistaken identity or whatever. And at a certain level, I go, well, so what? You went out there and you hired people to kill a person, get him out of here. And then for it to then turn out to be David Ortiz, just terrible. Ortiz, by the way, as I think most of us know at this point, was moved to he had his gallbladder removed and part of his intestine in a surgery immediately following the shooting. Was moved up to Boston and has been attended to in a Boston hospital. He's been out of the intensive care for over a week now, I believe, but is and the good news is that I think that he is on the road to recovery, stable, all of that kind of stuff. But he's still in the hospital, and we're talking about a couple weeks after this. I mean, this is an incredibly scary and also significant. I mean, who knows what he, the lingering effects that this will have, for him physically, though he has survived it. But I don't know. I chalk it up to a matter of newsworthy fact that this guy has been arrested, and what transpires from there, I don't really know. I don't have any comment about that or about him. My only comment is, for the health and well-being of David Ortiz, who's been nothing but about the most beloved figure of Boston and, frankly, nationally. I mean, outside of maybe Yankee fans who are just going to hate because that's what you do if you're a Yankees fan with the Red Sox, who doesn't think that David Ortiz is just the most jovial, happy, grandiose personality that baseball needed, quite frankly. I mean, for a long time. I mean, Rob Manfred, it goes to bed every night praying to God that Mike Trout somehow catches the personality that David Ortiz had, because he carried baseball so far by the way that he is, and you can't help but I think like the guy, at least from a distance, from just watching him be. And so I'm happy to think that he is still here, and I'm hopeful and expectant that he'll be back fully, and the rest of it, find who did it and put him away.
There's no real way to discern and analyze this by saying, well, it's even more unfortunate that David Ortiz got shot if it was a case of mistaken identity, because it's just unfortunate that he was shot, period. But if it really was just David Ortiz sitting at the bar with his buddy and someone came up to murder someone else and it ended up being Big Papi, first of all, that seems so fishy. But second of all, I mean, talk about just such bad luck. I mean, you would just be so furious if you're David Ortiz if this happened.
Well, yes. I would think you'd be pretty equally furious.
True. But just the luck and the circumstance and, like, the why me, why did this happen to me? I mean, it's just so accentuated if this really is the true case here. But either way, this is just a strange story. I mean, like you said, David Ortiz, one of the most beloved athletes of the 21st century and one of the most beloved Boston athletes ever. And I actually think that this isn't getting as much publicity as I thought it was going to. It led the news the first time, but it's been not really that much of a story after he was transferred back to Boston. It's sort of been just simmering. But I think that's a reflection on the popularity of baseball currently, honestly. But I mean, imagine if this happened to Aaron Rodgers, Tom Brady, Peyton Manning.
Yeah, I think there's a part of this that because it happened in the Dominican Republic, and there's a perception, I think globally. Let's put it like this: anyone who lives in a country has a pretty good understanding normally of the way things work in their country, particularly if you're talking about like criminal justice and crime at large, and where not to go and what not to do and some of those sorts of things, and also consequences and how things work and so forth. But I think when you start to think about other countries, and I was in the Philippines recently, as you know, and I thought, how, I saw some, police that were, there, just patrolling and so forth, as you would just anywhere. I also know that there is no discernible traffic law that you could break that will do anything to you. I mean, it's truly wonderful, I must admit. It was
dangerous.
Well, most things that are wonderful are also dangerous.
Good point.
So my point is that when you go, and this is obviously it's just a silly throwaway example, but it's just my take on it. There's certain things you can do places where everybody just knows, this is just kind of how it works. But you wouldn't know that if you weren't there. And my point is when you think about something like this happening, you go, I don't even know how to begin to, assess beyond the tragic facts of what we know about what happened to David Ortiz, how to start to talk about the investigation. Who is doing the investigation? Is there a police? Is there such a thing as an FBI in the Dominican Republic or some analog of that? Are there counties? Are there states? Who, I don't even know like what the entities are that are at play, how they go about doing the investigations, how they find people, and so forth and so on. Like, this is stuff that's just, I think it doesn't get covered because I just don't know if anybody even has an idea of what in the world to say about it until they go, yeah, we've arrested this person. And then you, okay, well, now they've arrested this person. And then you put your hands up and you don't know where really to go from there.
And it gets so much even more muddy when you just talk about the rampant nature of drug cartels in that neck of the woods. How many, the organized crime is so deep, and organized killings like this seem much more commonplace than they are in America.
Yeah, at least that is certainly the perception,
So then you just wonder, are we ever going to really know the answer? I guess the only thing that really is going to come of this is if and when David Ortiz is renewed to full health, because otherwise this is, obviously you're not going to be full when you lose parts of your internal organs, but at the very least, I guess the only silver lining in this is that the hitmen obviously weren't very accurate in who they were trying to shoot, but also weren't very accurate in how they shot him, because he remains alive, which I think is the only part that you can say that's good about this story.
Well, of course, yeah. It's crazy. Okay, it's Tutel Nuanez, 102.9 ESPN Radio. We're gonna get into actual baseball next. The All-Star Game in Cleveland is had its starters announced. I think that there is one team that is definitively better in terms of its starting nine than the other team, but Coulter and I will discuss that right after this. Hey, what are you doing this weekend? Would you like to hit the links? You go up to Canyon River Golf Course out there in East Missoula. Spectacular setting. Going to be a very nice weekend. Jack Weatherman says Sunday, sunny, no wind, perfect. Right now, a brand new fleet of golf carts that have the Shark Experience is available out at Canyon River. Coulter and I have used the Shark Experience, and it's fantastic to help you know distances. You can set it up, interactive, dynamic distances, hand touch screen. You can set up shots, know how far it is to obviously the green, the pin, but also bunkers, water hazards, etc. It has surround sound, Bluetooth. You can listen to your music. It's got satellite radio. You can order food on the thing. It's amazing. You got to go out there and check it out. And also this weekend, if you go online, CanyonRiverGolfClub.com, they got an unbelievable special. How about this? 18 holes with a cart for $40 this weekend. You got to order it. You got to get it online, CanyonRiverGolfClub.com. But an unbelievable special headed into the 4th of July weekend. Canyon River, an unbelievable layout, spectacular course, and a brand new fleet of golf carts with the Shark Experience, which really improves the experience, I can say, firsthand. Canyon River, love going out there and playing. You should go out there and play this weekend. A great time to check it out again. Get those rates online. CanyonRiverGolfClub.com.
Montana's first and only indoor urban axe throwing facility is open and ready for you to get your axe down here. Lumberjacks Throwing Company, located kitty corner to Draftworks Brewing, is the perfect spot for dates, team building, bachelor parties, or just to blow off some steam after work. Their axe coaches are here to teach you the safety and technique of axe throwing and to get you sticking the axe in no time. Check them out on Facebook or at lumberjacksthrowingcompany.com to book your experience today. Get your axe down here.
Good news! Missoulians can finally move into what we love best, being outside. Garden City Paint and Glass can help you get a head start on all those outside home improvement projects. Now is also a great time to start getting a jump on cracked windows and broken screens. Enjoy up to 25% off select products. And be sure to watch for PPG rebates to help the job along. Look good, stay comfortable, and keep energy costs down at Garden City Paint and Glass. 3217 Brooks or 549-0608.
Hey everybody, Ryan Tutel, and I'm here with Josh of the Advocates Injury Law Firm. Josh, there's a lot of lawyers in this area. What makes you different?
At the Advocates, we primarily focus on injury cases. That gives us the experience and the knowledge to correctly evaluate your case and work with insurance companies and other attorneys so you get exactly what you deserve to make you whole again. We take really good care of our clients, and we're going to fight for every single dollar you deserve.
Call 640-4444 or online at montanaadvocates.com. There are a lot of lawyers. You deserve an advocate.
Les Schwab is proud to introduce two of our best tires ever, just in time for summer. There's our exclusive Reputation, a high-mileage premium passenger tire we believe has the quietest, most comfortable ride ever. Or our exceptionally quiet and smooth all-season traction tire, the Open Range AT. Get $50 off alignment when you purchase a set of 4 Open Range AT or Reputation tires. Book an appointment today at leschwab.com. Les Schwab Tires. Doing the right thing matters. Cannot be combined with other offers. Limited time only. See details at leschwab.com.
On Russell, across from the fairgrounds.
In Western Montana, we know shopping local matters, but we also know that you're going to pay more for the quality and customer service that comes with it. Well, not at Selway Armory. Selway Armory is locally owned with a staff of specialists that can answer any question. In addition to the expertise, though, Selway Armory also has a bigger selection and, are you ready, lower prices than the box stores. When you're in the market for firearms and accessories, save money with the experts at Selway Armory. Selway Armory, 2825 Stockyard Road, Unit E6, and online at selwayarmory.com.
This is Mike Nugent with Berkshire Hathaway Home Services. Berkshire Hathaway provides Western Montana with full-time real estate professionals for you whenever you need us. Our reputation as the state's most knowledgeable and available real estate group has helped build unmatched trust in the Garden City and statewide. If you have been thinking of making a real estate move in the short or long term, give me a call. No pressure, no expectations. Just professional opinions and service at whatever pace you are comfortable with. Give me, Mike Nugent, a call today, 531-1802. And remember, every question is good to ask.
Tutel and Nuanez. Listen to the podcast on the TuneIn Radio app or on iTunes. 1029ESPN.com.
MLB All-Stars announced, the starters anyway. I think one team's notably better than the other. At least field players. Haven't seen the pitchers yet. Tutel Nuanez, 1029 ESPN Radio. Broadcasting live from the Kurtz Polaris Studios. Kurtz Polaris at 2904 West Broadway, Highway 83 in Sealy. Online at kurtzpolaris.com. You want to give us a call, 329-1899. The phone number. All guests join us via the Rangich Brothers RV phone line. I mean, hour number one, we go Wolfmother, Dave Matthews, Queens of the Stone Age. It's almost like somebody on the other end of this knows about music a little bit.
I feel bad for you today.
Why?
You should.
Bunch of sorry, sad sacks in that studio. You know, I help you out.
Thank you.
Tried to improve the show. Was getting desperate. So they shipped me back over here.
Yeah. Now, you've obviously been very embroiled. Maybe that's the wrong word. Maybe invested. I don't know. Involved in what's going on with the trail. You're on the trail for 21 and a half hours a day. Making music.
That's right.
Keeping the people in Missoula happy.
I don't know about that.
When you play these tracks right here, you make me happy. Like, I mean, you just like, this is great. We're not trying to do experimental stuff. You know what I mean? I know you're a big Frank Zappa guy, but I don't know. Queens of the Stone Age. Now that's where I'm living right there.
Josh Holmes, man, he's awesome.
Home.
Oh, is it? I don't think it's that.
I think it is.
No one's walking around saying, "Hello, my friend Josh Holme. Pleasure to see you."
Home.
What's up, Holme?
That's right. Josh Home. Also been a drummer for Eagles of Death Metal, part of the start of that band.
Now, what was the musician that you lived with that was your roommate at one time? Didn't you live with a rock star dude?
Well, yeah. I mean, a rock star may be a little strong and more folk star maybe. But Boy and Bear.
Oh, that's right.
Yes.
Yeah, great band.
Not necessarily as well known as Queens of the Stone Age, although Australian. And so in Australia, they've won a couple of what are the, Australian Grammys, whatever the equivalent is. So that's pretty good.
Tommy had a hit record in Australia once.
That is actually a legitimate fact. Yeah.
Yes, it is. Bring it back.
Let me ask you this. Ozzy Osbourne, more of them, less of them?
Less Ozzy, more Black Sabbath.
I would say same amount.
You want to know the number one thing I think about Ozzy Osbourne and Black Sabbath?
Amazing.
I think that I have like 12 Black Sabbath songs that I love when they're sang by someone else.
No. See, this is
Did
really
cover Sabbath? I didn't know that.
One of the great albums in my collection that I love. It's called Garage Inc. It's Metallica, but it's Metallica covering their favorite songs of all their old school metal influences. So like what songs they were playing when they're 16 in the garage.
Mm-hmm.
So there's Black Sabbath and
Is
Motorhead.
it in one of the towers of CDs that you brought?
It is.
That are conveniently placed directly in front of the lights that are unquestionably going to get knocked to the ground when I go in at
They
some point.
haven't gotten knocked to the ground yet.
That's because I'm very adroit. But at some point when I walk in the morning, I'm gonna reach around, I'm gonna hit it, and I'm gonna knock the thing over, and I'm just gonna start jumping up and down on them and smashing them into pieces on the floor.
If it hasn't happened yet, I doubt it'll happen. The fact that it annoys you and you still haven't done anything about it, it speaks tremendously to you.
It's par for the
general.
course.
That's right.
Yeah, I mean, most people would just move them instead of like having a potential self-fulfilling prophecy of doom.
Well, it's not my doom. I mean, they're your records.
Listen to you two old men battling about CDs. No one even has those anymore.
Well, I do. It's good for your brain. Better than digital music.
The amount of ridiculous claims you make on this show scares me.
Safer for drivers. You put the CD in. You're not sitting there DJing in traffic.
You're sitting there throwing CDs out the window because they're skipping. See, now you've got the masses angry.
Okay.
Bring them on.
The NL, head and shoulders better than the AL.
Right now at Carl Tyler Chevrolet, take advantage of employee pricing and up to $7,500 in rebates on all 2018 Silverados. Get the most out of your summer with a reliable truck that'll take you anywhere during Carl Tyler Chevrolet's June Silverado sell down. Save $11,719 on select 2018 Silverado 1500s. View our full inventory at gmofmontana.com or 3663 North Reserve Street. Carl Tyler Chevrolet. Find new roads.
No matter how far you may go, there's always one just down the road. Town Pump, who pump it up, pump it up.
When summer nights are a little long, Town Pump will wake you up. Swing into Town Pump on your way to work and grab a high brew 11-ounce coffee for you and a friend. Buy one, get one free. Stay hydrated in the Montana heat with Arrowhead 1 liters. Buy one, get one free at Town Pump.
Town Pump, right down the road, pump it up, oh yeah.
Canyon River Golf Club is a must for any golfer in western Montana. Tucked away in a spectacular setting along the Clark Fork River in East Missoula, Canyon River offers one of Montana's best championship golf experiences. And Canyon River is happy to announce their new fleet of golf carts, which include the Shark Experience, an interactive GPS giving dynamic distances and touchscreen interaction to help you play your best. Plus, with Bluetooth, radio, and surround sound, you can enjoy yourself between holes too. Book online at CanyonRiverGolfClub.com. Missoula's best golf, Canyon River. Hey folks, Ryan Tutel, and I'm here with Josh of the Advocates. Josh, do most injury accidents end up in court?
Luckily, most personal injury cases can be settled out of court through a fair negotiation with an insurance company. However, sometimes it is necessary. I'm prepared to do whatever it takes to get a fair settlement. Luckily, most personal injury cases can be settled out of court with a fair negotiation with the insurance company. However, I'm prepared to do whatever it takes to get the right settlement for you.
It's Josh at the Advocates, 640-4444, or online at montanaadvocates.com.
You're a big league fan. You expect big league service. At the Desperado, you get exactly that. With 35 flat screens, ice-cold brews on tap, and Missoula's #1 wings, you're free to sit back and enjoy every pitch. This summer, make the Desperado your baseball home away from home. Cool off after work, relax on the weekends, soak in some great food and drinks, and watch your team make yet another great push for October. And hey, if yours can't do it, there's plenty of other teams and fun to go around at the Desperado Sports Tavern on South Russell across from the Y.
Still emerging from your winter hibernation and need to get your bearings straight? Cruise on down to Port of Missoula for all your spring and summer needs. Come check out their men's and women's streetwear, sunglasses, and shoes from brands like Vans, Adidas, Thrasher, Volcom, and the original Port of Missoula brand. They also have all your skating needs covered, from tune-ups to fresh-made custom boards. Port of Missoula, Missoula's original board shop since 1989, on the Hip Strip, 618 South Higgins.
ESPN Radio for Western Montana, KKVU HD3 Stevensville, and 102.9 FM on K275BS Missoula. ESPN Missoula Sports Center.
Good afternoon, Ryan Tutel, Colton Nuanez, ESPN Sports Center. After nearly 3 decades coaching basketball at Carroll College, revered head coach Gary Turcotte announced his retirement Thursday. Turcotte served as the head men's basketball coach at Carroll for 19 seasons, piling up 376 wins, 7 Frontier Conference championships, 7 NAIA tournament appearances, and a trip to the 05 NAIA Final Four. He announced his first retirement in 2009, only to join Rachel Sayers' staff for the women's team the following year. He spent the last 8 seasons coaching the Carroll College women, including helping last year's team to 26 wins, a Frontier Conference title, and an appearance in the national tournament.
Back on the road, the Missoula Osprey won on the road for the first time in 11 days. One game after losing to Billings to cap their first homestand of the summer, the O's posted a 7-2 win over the Mustangs in the Magic City Thursday night. Missoula climbed to 6-7 so far this season thanks to 2 hits and 2 RBI each from Cesar Garcia and Kevin LaChance. Missoula plays for the 7th straight night tonight against the Mustangs. First pitch, 6:35. Action can be heard right here on 129 ESPN Missoula.
And finally, LeBron James will give his number 23 jersey to Anthony Davis next season with the Los Angeles Lakers. James will wear number 6. And also, Kawhi Leonard requesting a meeting with the LA Lakers, specifically Jeannie Buss and Magic Johnson.
This ESPN Missoula Sports Center is brought to you by Aspen Sound.
If today was your last day, and tomorrow was too late, could you say goodbye to yesterday? Would you live each moment?
Yeah, there's a thing in athletics about not being able to handle success. It's like you do things so well, and then you just get so nervous. It's like you're even par through 7. And then you go triple to finish it out, and you blow your whole 9. That's what Tommy has done.
I hope to every Lord God in every galaxy that somebody's watching on SWX, because the facial reactions to that song were the funniest things I have seen with my eyes in my entire life.
Well, Tommy, I can tell you that my family is watching live in Bozeman on SWX. And
hello, Coulter's family.
My sister-in-law just texted me, Nickelback, never again.
Yeah.
Congratulations, Tommy.
You had like one of the great all-time music streaks, and then just ruined the second hour. It's Tutel Nuanez, 102.9 ESPN Radio.
At least he led with a song that's still better than the Beatles.
We are broadcasting live. Don't worry, Tommy, I've muted him. We are broadcasting live from the Kurtz Polaris studios.
Yeah, not for long.
Kurtz Polaris at 2904 West Broadway and Missoula Highway 83 in Sealy. Online at kurtzpolaris.com. If you missed anything in the first hour, you can check it out on the podcast. Podcast available on the TuneIn Radio app, iTunes, Spotify. We still got iTunes, right, Tommy?
Yeah, no, not for very long. It's being replaced.
But we still have it, though. That's the
thing. I don't know. Okay. Maybe. I'm still on CDs, man.
Wherever you get your podcasts, you can listen to our podcast. It's the Tutel and Nuanez podcast. It's brought to us by the Wingate by Wyndham Hotel. Go rate it, review it, star it, all that stuff. Check out it. Tell us what you think about it. We appreciate that. We're going to hear now from Carson Rostad. Yeah, no, this is a real punishment. You're still muted. Oh, he's starting to boil. He's really starting to get angry, Tommy.
Bring him in.
This is great television right now.
Let the tiger loose.
Nope, going to punish you. Better turn it back off. Hope you can do 57 minutes and 30 seconds by yourself.
Coulter, I don't do a lot of things well, but I could do 57 minutes alone in my sleep.
It is true. He said, "All right, I'm going to do the show," and then he doesn't breathe for 2 hours.
Especially when we got 2 great interviews right here.
These are actually great. Thanks to Carson Rossatt for swinging by the studio today. I know he's a busy guy with his variety of camps he's been going to. He's also working full-time. So I know he's got a lot on his plate right now, but he's got one decision off his plate, committing to the Grizzlies last weekend. And it's just interesting to be around people because, we watched him play. We've read about him. We've talked about him. But just getting to meet him and just getting to be around a kid, you get to have a little bit better of a feeling about him. And I think that he's a good kid, confident guy, and great hair.
Great hair. I mean, this has got, I don't know what is suave. Is that still a thing?
Sure.
Whatever. I mean, let's go. Paul Mitchell all day long.
Your wife's probably rolling over.
Now, Paul Mitchell.
Do they still make products?
Oh, yeah. Lots of it.
Cool.
I don't know how Paul Mitchell got into that because if you were like, well, not this guy. He's clearly not using the stuff that he says is so great. Look at him.
Maybe he's just helping out the others that do in fact have hair.
He doesn't have great hair, Paul Mitchell.
Well,
bad.
Not all of us can be like
bad
you.
Deal. Not all of us can be like Carson Rossatt.
Truth.
Carson Rossatt, Gatorade Player of the Year. Also just committed this week to the Montana Grizzlies to play football. He is coming now into his senior season in Hamilton, and so has 1 year left at the high school level, but was good enough to come down here and talk to us again. He was here in town for the Marty Morningwig quarterback school, which took place. There was the coaches clinic last night at the university, and then the players, about 16 or so high school quarterbacks from around the state, primarily on the western side of the state, were at Big Sky High School today at Missoula County Stadium working on their game and getting coached up, and he was one of them, and so an opportunity to talk with him.
The most striking part about Carson Rossatt when you break down the stats is just how efficient he's been in his first couple years as a starter. His sophomore year, he threw for 3,079 yards, 39 touchdowns, only 7 picks. This last year, close to 3,000 yards passing again, 43 touchdowns, only 6 picks. So count them up, 82 touchdowns and 13 picks the last 2 years. And, oh, by the way, a 24-2 record, pretty darn good.
Them some Aaron Rodgers numbers, not so much the win-loss stuff, but the touchdown to interception ratio, pretty outstanding. All right, here you go. A little conversation with future Grizz and current Hamilton Bronc Carson Rossatt.
Here with Carson Rossatt, fresh out of Marty Morningweg's quarterback school. Thanks for being with us, Carson.
Thank you for having me.
Down at Big Sky today, participating all day in a quarterback camp. What's different about this camp that Marty Morningweg runs compared to some of the other camps maybe you go to?
This camp, it's somewhat similar, and then the biggest difference I think is going in the classroom and just having him like chalk talk with us and stuff and watch film and go over drills and just like reads and progressions and stuff like that.
I was there this morning looking over your shoulders in the classroom, and he's running through film of Mike Vick. Seems like a pretty high standard there, like breaking down film of Mike Vick. You're like, well, yeah, I bet I could roll out to the right if I could. So what's it like, though? I mean, when he's sitting there doing that, what are the things that you're trying to take out of what he's showing you for your game?
I'm just like listening to the small stuff he says, like footwork and stuff, because obviously I'm not Mike Vick. I can't roll out to the left and throw a 70-yard bomb to Deshaun Jackson, but I just try to pick up as much as I can that I know I can do and just stuff that'll help me in my game.
Carson Rossatt, the Gatorade Player of the Year last year, Hamilton High School. You guys marched all the way to the state championship game. Fell just short of a state championship. But when you are learning from guys like Marty Morningweg, how does that compare, contrast to the Class A level? Because I think that you guys are running some sophisticated stuff there at Hamilton with Bryce Carver, definitely getting college ready. But what sort of stuff do you take away from a guy that's been in the NFL so long like Marty has?
He's just super smart in everything he does, and he's really fine-tuned and not like as general as a lot of coaches are. And he'll really make sure your details are perfect.
Carson, you declared earlier this week to go to the University of Montana. Obviously, your cousin, Jordy Tripp, things went pretty well for him, if I understand it correctly, at the U. And so, there's a connection there. You're on the west side of the state. But what was it to you when you're actually time to make your decision about where to go that you said, okay, Bobby Houck, the Grizzlies, that's what I want to do?
After just talking with their coaches since last December, whenever we were allowed to talk. I've got to know them really well, and I really love them, and I think their offense is great because we pretty much run like the exact same thing, just not as sophisticated with Carver being there. And I love the town and the stadium and the facilities and everything, and they've got great fans, so I just thought it was a perfect place to be.
Probably a dream of yours to
Yeah.
commit. So when you actually called Coach Houck and said, "Hey, I'm going to do it. I want to be a Grizz," what was that moment like for you?
It was really nice when he finally answered the phone. I called him like 6 times.
Bobby, I want to commit.
Yeah. And he was super excited, and it was really just amazing knowing I've got a home for the next 4 years and probably 5. And then it's just great knowing that I'm committed there.
So on one hand, I think kids experience a certain amount of relief, say, okay, it's done. Like, I can do that, especially now as you're going into your senior season, like, okay, lock and load, with Hamilton and stuff. But is there a certain amount of pressure, where you go and you're playing in high school and everybody that is playing against you knows, okay, well, this is the Gatorade Player of the Year. This is a guy who's going to the University of Montana. Is there a sense that you have of, okay, well, I kind of got to prove it or something like that this year? What's that like?
Yeah, there's a little bit of pressure, but not that bad because obviously I can do it or I wouldn't have gotten these things. But you feel a little bit of pressure knowing, like, okay, everybody thinks I should be able to do this, so I should probably be able to do this.
But given that you guys have had such great runs these last couple of years but haven't got that state championship, I mean, that must motivate you tremendously coming into your senior year.
Yeah, that's motivated everybody. This year we have like 20 more kids in the weight room than we ever have. Pretty much the whole entire team's there, and then we'll just go run and stuff after weights, and everybody's just motivated because 2 second places in a row really hurts.
Carson Rostad, Montana Gatorade Player of the Year in high school football last season in the state, and future University of Montana Grizzly as of earlier this week. Carson, I know that Hamilton, the football players, some of them there, have all gone for the long walks, occasionally the man bun thing. You are leading the pack. So what's the deal where you're like, hey, boys, we're letting it go? Got to get the lettuce out there, man.
Yeah.
You got the Bitterroot. You're like, okay, we're gonna tie into nature. What's going on?
I think it was my sophomore year. At the beginning of football, just a bunch of us decided, hey, let's not cut our hair until the end of our senior year. So we're just letting it grow, I guess.
Well, my brother hasn't got a haircut in 10 years, so maybe you'll get to that point soon.
Yeah.
Being a guy that has been close to the program, given that your cousin played, you're just from down the road, you've been a Grizz fan your whole life. What sort of, you probably have pretty good memories of when Coach Houck was here the first time and when Jordy was playing. So what are some of your good memories from just growing up and watching the Grizz?
My family bought a box, which was nice, so I've been lucky to watch all the games in nice weather because I can decide the weather. But,
right.
And then just sitting up there and watching all the games, and I used to love when I was little just going down on the field after the game and like talking with the players and then grabbing a couple friends and kicking some field goals or anything because I never kicked a field goal besides then because there's never any field goals around in Hamilton that we could go use. And then just like Jordy being my cousin, I was always really close with the old players, so I'd like go over to his mom's house and we would eat dinner and stuff there, and they'd come down. A couple of them actually took my sister to prom one year, so it was nice having a bunch of them down at my house, and yeah.
Carson, I want to come back to today and to the QB school, and it's interesting because it's all quarterbacks, hence the QB school. Most of them from the AA level, most of them from the city of Missoula. That's kind of how this whole thing started. But what's it like to kind of, instead of going against guys that are also quarterbacks, all be a certain sense of camaraderie and all be positionally in the same spot? What was that like today to be with Raleigh Worcester and some of the other guys around the area in this sort of interesting and sort of unique context?
It's nice knowing like you don't have to like really compete with them because you're not trying to win a game, even though I don't really play against most of them. But going to the camps and talking with them, it's really nice getting to know them, and just like you're somewhat similar. That's why you're there together. So you have a lot of similarities, and we've became good friends with most of them.
I want to ask you a little bit more about the recruiting. What is it about Coach Houck? What does he sell you? What did he tell you about the program and the vision he has for it going forward here?
Well, obviously, Coach said I answer my phone every time. So, I'm always here. That's what he said.
He's just a positive guy, and he knows we're going to win and tells me that you come here, we're definitely going to win, and very believable, and I trust him a lot with everything he says, and he's just a good guy.
That's one of the most interesting parts about Bobby is a guy I covered when he was here the first time, and then now he has never wavered from that. He's always said, we are going to be dominant. There is no accepting anything else. That must be great, though, to know that that's going to be your coach as an athlete.
Yeah, it's really nice knowing he'll be my coach.
Does that help you raise your own personal level of expectations when you have a guy that's as demanding as Coach Houck?
Yeah, going to the quarterback camp there, just like realizing the different intensity of their coaches compared to our high school coaches really opened up my eyes to what I'll be doing the next couple of years, and it just made me realize like I can be this much better and that I haven't like plateaued in anything like that.
From a quarterback perspective, just looking at your numbers, you've been so efficient. You've made hardly any mistakes. You're going to be one of those guys that's a rare 4-year starter in high school. Where do you think you're at just in terms of your own development, what your potential is, and what are some of the things you want to work on this summer going into your senior year and then leading into when you become a Grizz?
Just the teammates that I've had the last 3 years are a big reason that I've been so successful, and I think I definitely get stronger and faster this offseason and just know my receivers because we got a bunch of new ones this year, so just got to like learn how to throw with them and stuff so we can have a good season this year and just go out and throw by myself and get more accurate. And
obviously, full year before you get there, maybe a redshirt year, so it's still a ways down the line in terms of maybe playing on Saturdays. But on the offensive side of the ball, you look at say Brent Pease or Tim Rosenbaugh. Have you gotten a chance to talk to those guys? And you talked about the offense that Montana runs, but did you have an opportunity to sort of get a feel for those guys and what they want to do and maybe some of that interpersonal stuff as well this early on?
Yeah, me and my dad came up one time for a spring practice this year, and we met in Rosenbaugh's office, and they have like this big desk, and he had all the plays wrote on it, and we just like went over some, and he pointed out certain plays that are similar to the ones we ran, and I could just like recognize it like that. And he's got a really smart offensive mind, so I think it'll be really nice. Was it kind of intimidating to get in there, like you're sitting in the offensive coordinator's office, and he's got plays diagrammed on the table for you, and you're going, okay, well, now school's in session, I guess. Yeah, it's crazy. Our high school, it's like a children's book compared to their dictionary of plays they have.
Does that part excite you, though, just how complicated it is, the challenge that it is to play quarterback from a mental perspective?
Yeah, I think it'll be nice just having to like study up the plays and being able to audible and all that. I think it'll be really fun.
Covering recruiting, it's always interesting to just watch how the dominoes sort of fall, especially in state. And the last couple of years, Montana State's had a little bit of momentum. Jeff Choate, being in there and winning the Bobcat Grizzly game 3 years in a row. But now it seems like Coach Houck is really trying to get that momentum back. And you were the first commit of this class, but then a couple other guys already this week, Jackson Lee and Drew Deck, and a couple other guys at this camp that were getting recruited pretty hard by the Grizzlies as well, Raleigh Wooster and Tommy Malott from Butte. So what do you think of that element of it, just maybe being the first domino that falls? And will you kind of treat this as being an in-state recruiter yourself? Will you reach out to some of these guys and say, hey, let's go be Grizzlies? Yeah, I've talked to some of them, and at the camp I was at, that was when Drew got offered, so it was nice, like, just trying to convince him. And then I think it was the very next day he committed, so texted him and said congrats and stuff. It's going to be nice. And then me and Jackson have been at all of the camps together, and we've thought it would be nice to play together for a long time, so I always thought that he would come here, and it was really nice to see that he came here. Last question for me. It must be fun for you, too, to watch a lot of these young guys that are in the Grizz program, because there's some guys that are probably going to play some minutes this year, Gabe Sulser and Levi Janicaro and Drew Turner, that you are certainly going to be in the mix with as well. So when you watch those Montana guys, the fellow Montana guys, what does that feel like just to know you maybe are going to be throwing a Gabe Sulser here pretty soon? Yeah, it's nice. Gabe texted me after I won the Gatorade Player of the Year, and then he texted me again like 2 days ago congratulating me on committing and stuff. So I think it'd be super nice. It's going to be nice just to throw with him, and knowing a lot of like the young guys that the Grizz have, it's just super cool knowing like I've watched them play. I know how they can play, and I'll be getting to play with them in a couple of years. Carson Rostad, future Montana Grizzly, current Gatorade Player of the Year, current Hamilton Bronc. Best of luck to you this fall down there in Hamilton, and look forward to watching you play at the next level. Thank you. Very good. Carson Rostad, appreciate him swinging by the studio and doing the interview after the quarterback school today. And, yeah, like you said, Coulter,
any kid, especially a high school kid, doing an interview, it takes a little bit to, I haven't done many and so forth and so on. You get an impression of a guy. And I think it is a little more, a little easier to sit down in the studio and kind of do it, get a little better feel for it and stuff like that. But he seemed to be a very sort of comfortable, confident, like you said, guy. Obviously, he can throw. Got to see him the first time I've seen him, sit back and just throw in person. And certainly, I mean, he's a big kid, strong, and has a lot of development time out in front of him still to be. I mean, for crying out loud, just finishing his junior year in high school. Significant upside for Carson Rostad.
Well, and the analogy I would make is I've said that Kyler Murray has a chance to enter the best possible situation maybe in the history of the NFL with his being drafted by the Arizona Cardinals and Cliff Kingsbury being hired as the Arizona Cardinals head coach, because Kyler Murray has no history running a pro-style offense whatsoever. But if they run similar offensive principles to what Cliff Kingsbury has done in college,
Cliff Kingsbury has no history running a pro-style
exactly. And so you might just straight up be like, hey, we're just going to extrapolate on the plays you guys ran at Oklahoma last year, and so you just have those banked reps, and so the learning curve is so much less steep. And that seems as if it's the case right now as well with Carson Rostad. I mean, like he said there in that interview, the offense Tim Rosenbaugh is running at the University of Montana is very similar to the offense Bryce Carver is running. Obviously, a lot more complicated version. But I think that Rostad, his learning curve that most Montana
child's book, I believe.
Exactly. Yes. Most learning curves for Montana quarterbacks though are so steep and so stark, and it seems as if, first of all, he's going to have more banked reps than almost any quarterback I can remember that went Division I because of being a 4-year starter.
Amazing.
And he's playing for a guy who played college football, and Bryce Carver, a really smart coach. And I think those things just give him a systematic advantage. Not to mention then his natural athletic gifts. 6'3", 205 pounds. He's mobile. He can run a little bit. It'll be interesting to see what he transforms into. You watched him a little bit today. What'd you think?
I liked him. I thought certainly his size and his stature, and I thought his throwing motion was good. A lot of what I saw was a little more finesse stuff in terms of trying to put the ball in the bucket in the corner of the end zone, that type of stuff. What I didn't get to see was, first of all, how athletic is he? He certainly looks athletic, but in terms of, moving around, you're not really going to do that in individual quarterback drills. And I didn't see a lot of zip either on the football. But again, I don't know that I was looking at circumstances or places where you're sitting back there and really trying to hit your target, you know what I mean, in terms of with some velocity. But again, to be what he is at 16 or maybe 17 years of age is, I mean, you just go, yeah, you offer that kid, period. Mm-hmm. You do it. And so, we'll see, like any of these guys, you see what can and what will develop, but especially when you talk about the bloodline, the personal family tie to the University of Montana, and you get this at Montana State as well, personal family ties to the school. And, when you talk about the Bicknells, it's not just about how good is this individual sitting in front of me. It's about knowing that there's a familial history that makes them going to a place more significant to them than it does to other kids, and that exists to an extent, not at all like the Bicknell family at Montana State, but there is some of that here for Carson Rostad.
Yep.
It's Tutel Nuanez, 102.9 ESPN Radio. Let's do this. We're going to get out a little early in this break, try and make Tommy happy since he's sitting back there hooking us up with 3 out of 4 good music tunes today. And we will come back, our Coach's Corner, with Joe Glenn. Joe Glenn back in town, former Montana head coach, former head coach a lot of places, South Dakota, of course, as well. And he's back in town, was at the quarterback camp, got a chance to talk with him. So you hear that interview right after this.
Here with longtime coach. Here with longtime coach and long.
Carl Tyler's Missoula Volkswagen wants to help you celebrate Independence Day with a new SUV. The Volkswagen 2019 Atlas has all your road trip needs covered and includes a 6-year, 72,000-mile, whichever occurs first, transferable bumper-to-bumper limited warranty, along with Carl Tyler's Forever Powertrain warranty. You can focus on your vacation with worry-free ownership. Carl Tyler's Missoula Volkswagen.
Remainder of warranty coverage transfers to subsequent vehicle owner. See dealer for warranty booklet, exclusions and limitations.
Canyon River Golf Club is a must for any golfer in western Montana. Tucked away in a spectacular setting along the Clark Fork River in East Missoula, Canyon River offers one of Montana's best championship golf experiences. And Canyon River is happy to announce their new fleet of golf carts, which include the Shark Experience, an interactive GPS giving dynamic distances and touchscreen interaction to help you play your best. Plus, with Bluetooth, radio, and surround sound, you can enjoy yourself between holes too. Book online at CanyonRiverGolfClub.com. Missoula's best golf, Canyon River.
Alpine Touch has been providing you with the distinct seasonings you know and love for decades. Now, Alpine Touch has something to help you unleash the freshness of all the delicious flavors you need to spice up any meal. Check out Alpine Touch's new coarse grinds, unleashing the fresh taste of the garlic pepper or all-purpose seasonings to please any nose or taste bud. Coarse grinds can be purchased by the pound at retail locations around the state or at alpinetouch.com. Use the code ESPN10 at checkout to get 10% off any online order. Alpine Touch, Montana's special spice.
We ate a lot of steaks before we came up with the Montana Club's Private Reserve Cut Angus. It's as good a steak as you're going to get. Our Private Reserve Cut Angus is specially cut for us. And with our custom seasoning, it has a flavor that's absolutely incomparable. We're confident that it will satisfy the most discriminating steak customer for an unrivaled steak experience. Real Montana, real food. The Montana Club on Brooks and North Reserve, Missoula.
Summer's here and the time is right for real fruit smoothies at Florence Coffee Company. Offered in flavors like strawberry, mango, peach, wild berry, and banana, and made with no artificial colors or flavors. Florence Coffee's fruit smoothies are the perfect summer treat. Enjoy a real fruit smoothie today at any Flowco locations or visit FlorenceCoffeeCo.com.
The best flavor under the big sky. Florence Coffee Company.
It happens. You're positive you put your bank card back in your wallet, but the next time you need it, it's missing. Avoid the panic and take control with the MyCard app and debit card from Farmers State Bank. Our app lets you control your debit card and securely turn it off right from your phone. Safe, secure, instant. MyCard is available only at Farmers State Bank. Ask about it at any of our 9 locations or learn more at farmersebank.com. Farmers State Bank, member FDIC.
ESPN Missoula Sports Center.
Good afternoon. Ryan Tutel, Colton Nuanez, 102.9 ESPN Sports Center. After nearly 3 decades coaching basketball at Carroll College, revered head coach Gary Turcotte announced his retirement Thursday. Turcotte served as the head men's basketball coach at Carroll for 19 seasons, piling up 376 wins, 7 Frontier Conference championships, and 7 NAIA National Tournament appearances, along with a trip to the 2005 NAIA Final Four. He announced his first retirement in 2009, only to join Rachel Sayers' staff for the women's team the following year. He has spent the last 8 seasons coaching the Carroll College women, including helping last year's team to 26 wins, a Frontier Conference title, and an appearance in the national tournament.
Back on the road, Missoula Osprey won on the road for the first time in 11 days last night. One game after losing to Billings to cap their first homestand of the summer. The O's posted a 7-2 win over the Mustangs in the Magic City. Missoula climbed to 6-7 so far this season, thanks to 2 hits and 2 RBI each from Cesar Garcia and Kevin LaChance. Missoula plays for the 7th straight night tonight against the Mustangs. First pitch, 6:35 p.m., and the action can be heard right here, 102.9 ESPN Missoula.
And finally, LeBron James will give his jersey, number 23, to Anthony Davis next season. He will take over wearing number 6. And also, the Women's World Cup, the United States women beating host country France 2-1. They will play Switzerland.
This ESPN Missoula Sports Center is brought to you by Aspen Sound.
Here in the final segment of the show. Nearly 46,000 people in the stadium to watch the United States and France. in the quarterfinals of the Women's World Cup, a 2-1 victory for the United States. So they are in the semis. I believe that's their 10th straight win in World Cup play, which ties a record. Norway also with 10. So very impressive for the United States women. It's Tutel Nuanez, 102.9 ESPN Radio. Broadcasting live from the Kurtz Polaris studios. Kurtz Polaris at 2904 West Broadway in Missoula, Highway 83 in Sealy, online at kurtzpolaris.com. It is time now for our Coach's Corner. Coach's Corner is brought to us by Opportunity Bank, your local bank, your opportunity. And I had a chance to catch up with Joe Glenn, Coulter, a long-time coach all over the place, but notably in the state of Montana at the University of Montana, and notably within that run in 2001 when the Montana Grizzlies won their second and most recent national championship with him at the helm. He also was, a long-time coach of and with, even later on, Marty Morningway, who was in town for the quarterback school today. But Joe Glenn, first of all, if you've ever had a chance to meet him, he's just one of the truly nice guys, fun guys to talk to, gregarious, laughs a lot, outgoing, just somebody that you like to be around, and obviously made a great career of coaching across the inland western United States.
And certainly one of the great runs in the history of the University of Montana. Joe Glenn was a great coach, but he also inherited the ideal situation, and he took advantage of it to the absolute maximum. And I remember when Joe Glenn was first hired, the Grizz were riding sky high. They were the number 2 team in the country coming into the year, and they went to Hofstra to open up this 2000 season, and they lost 10-9. The Grizz didn't score a touchdown. And this was, on the heels of Dave Dickinson, Brian Aiyat scoring 1 million points. Who is this new coach? How can he not score a touchdown? How are we losing to a private school in New York? What is this? And then Joe Glenn quickly silenced all the doubters by going and whipping Idaho at
Moscow.
At Martin Stadium in Pullman. The game was played in Pullman. It hung 45 on the Vandals, and then the next week beats Cal Poly 53-3, and 13 wins later, they're playing Adrian Peterson and the Georgia Southern Eagles in the national championship game, and they fall just short in that one. But then the next year, get back on the horse and ride it all the way, and that's the last national championship the University of Montana has won, and that is actually crazy because I think at that moment in time, you would have said, well, these guys are just going to win one every 3 years for 20 years. Yeah. I mean, these guys are going to win 8, 9, 10, and they've played for national championships since then, but they have not won one. And Joe Glenn, 39-6 in his career at the University of Montana before taking the Wyoming job, and he set the stage for the great run that Bobby Houck had the first time around as well. But I think that Joe Glenn maximized the roster he inherited. He made it even better, and some of the all-time great players in the history of Grizz football played for Joe Glenn: Vince Huntsberger, Atu Molden, Johansi Humphreys, Drew Miller. On down the line. I mean, Vince Huntsberger reached such a high level his senior year, he received a vote for the Heisman. Pretty darn good for a partial scholarship kid out of Libby, Montana. And Joe Glenn is we always talk about legacies, and there's so many different things that can impact your legacy. When do you walk away, whether you're the athlete or the coach? How does your time end? A lot of times people have kind of a bell curve arc. They hit a peak, and then they kind of go back downhill, and it impacts just the way that they're remembered. I think that the fact that Joe Glenn just straight up dominated and then just, boom, was here, and then he was gone. He didn't even have a full cycle of his players, just 3 years at the helm, but 39 wins. It's one of the greatest runs ever, and I think that he is remembered with as much reverence as any Grizz coach in history, with the exception of probably Don Reed, because he did go out on such a high note.
Right. All right. Very good. From earlier today, it's our Opportunity Bank Coach's Corner with Joe Glenn.
Here with longtime coach and longtime Grizzly coach Joe Glenn. And, Coach, you come back to Missoula and participate in this. What's it like just to be back in town and back in football with Marty, in this capacity?
I love it. Marty and I were together from 80 through 85 and had a really, really fun time. Won a Big Sky Conference football championship during that time. Marty was definitely the pacemaker of that team, and he hasn't changed. He's a lot of fun and knows how to coach, knows how to teach, and yet knows how to make things fun and exciting. And I think the quarterbacks here really bought into him. They know he knows what he's doing. I think he coached about 33, 34 years in the NFL. He and I coached 1 year together when he first got done playing, and I watched him in action. He's an excellent coach and a lot of fun, and a good father, good husband, and just a good friend and a guy that we all respect. And good to have him back.
What's it like? Obviously, Marty's a great example, but you've been around a lot of guys, and you're the patriarch of a lot of guys in the football world. So to see them come through and make careers of it, and also the lives that they impact, that's got to be rewarding.
Well, it is rewarding, and I even stay in touch with so many of them through Facebook, which has been fun for me. I retired.
How about that gadget, huh? That Facebook, that's a thing?
Yeah. But it does give you an opportunity at least to see their children and see their family grow up, and when you can't really get on the phone and talk to them. But it just is a fun way to stay in touch with guys from, if you coached 40-some years and you have about 100 kids on each team, you can't possibly stay in touch with all of them. But what happened here at the University of Montana was a big part of my career, both as an assistant coach and as the head coach of the championship team in 01, and got a lot of people to be thankful for all of that. And but it's been a huge part of my life, and we'll continue. Michelle and I will continue to come back to Missoula every year.
When you come back now, as retired and done with your career, and you get back to Missoula, what's the thing that you remember most, or what do you reflect on the most when you're here?
People. That's pretty easy. You go downtown and have a Mo Club burger, and you see umpteen people that you know, and the bartender always knows that he even knew I liked mine well done with hot cheese on it. And so
pretty good, long memory.
I said thanks a lot. He even knew the guy that used to cook me one in Greeley, Colorado. And he said, yeah, wasn't his name Robbie? Didn't he leave yours about red? And I said, yeah, well, talk to me when he put it on. But anyway, yeah, it just people, friends. I worked here for Zip Beverage for a year in between gigs, and it was a real wonderful year. And then I got to meet people outside of football, and met people that I would have never met had I just always been in coaching. Mike and Joni Hayes were our neighbors on Burlington, and some of the best friends we've ever had in our whole life. Joni and Michelle, great friends, and Mike and I as well. So we got a lot of our heart here in Missoula, and we're going to travel around quite a bit. We're going to make our home in Arizona area, and then travel for 3 months during the obvious time of the year, and try and get to see my grandchildren who are in Lincoln, Nebraska, and Boise, Idaho. I'm one of 12 children, and there's 9 of them in Lincoln, Nebraska still, so I get there and try and see them. Anyway, and then try and do some things you couldn't do while you're coaching for 40-some years.
Well, Coach, we appreciate you being with us, and best of luck to you as you travel and cruise around a little bit.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Joe Glenn, our Opportunity Bank Coach's Corner. How'd you like to be at the Glenn family reunion in Lincoln? Man, are you kidding me? You got 9 siblings still living in Lincoln, Nebraska? Go back there. I mean, get about it. You take up a whole section of the stadium in Lincoln, Nebraska. People should remember, too, Coulter, he won 2, count them up, back-to-back national championships at the Division II level with Northern Colorado. And so very impressive. That was in, 96, 97 at Northern Colorado before leaving there after the 99 season and coming to Montana for, pretty good run. 2 championship games in the quarterfinal, 1 national championship victory. It's strong work. And, headed off to Wyoming after that, and then finished his career in South Dakota. But, again, just couldn't be a nicer guy. And the last time, I guess I should say, that I met Joe Glenn or talked to Joe Glenn was when he was coaching South Dakota, and they played at the University of Montana. And, it was a game that Montana won, and I think that Joe Glenn, he came in, it was his first time back as an opposing coach, I believe, in Washington Grizzly Stadium, and a pretty unique experience for him that way as well. But we certainly appreciate him taking a little time out with us there on the sideline to do that deal.
It's probably fascinating for Joe Glenn because he's a alum of South Dakota and coach at the University of Montana. So, and this year Montana plays South Dakota, so that'll probably be one where he's a little conflicted.
Yep.
Because he played at South Dakota, coached at Montana. So interesting. It's also interesting to me the way that the path Joe Glenn had to become the head coach at Montana and then the success he had. I think it set a precedent that I think that then Bob Stitt, who played for Joe Glenn at Doane College and then coached for Joe Glenn at Northern Colorado, I think that there was a lot of hope that would be the exact same path that Bob Stitt would take, would be, a Division II coach who then took over at Montana and led the program to unprecedented success. It didn't quite work out like that. And you just wonder how much of that kind of false expectation was set by Joe Glenn's career. Regardless, it's glad to have him back in town. He's a great dude and some of the most talented teams in Grizz history and ones that I have great memories of as well.
Yeah. Very good. We'll take a quick break. We'll come back, have a nice, long final segment. We'll start with the United States women's national team. 2-1 winners. They head to the semifinals of the World Cup. Next.
No matter how far you may go, there's always one just down the road. Town Pump, who pump it up, pump it up.
Tacos are good any night of the week, and Town Pump will help you pair them with the perfect cold drink. Get Modelo 12-pack cans for $11.99. Kick back and enjoy the cool night air with Liberty Creek 1.5-liter wine, just $7.99 at Town Pump.
Town Pump, right down the road, pump it up.
Canyon River Golf Club is a must for any golfer in western Montana. Tucked away in a spectacular setting along the Clark Fork River in East Missoula, Canyon River offers one of Montana's best championship golf experiences. And Canyon River is happy to announce their new fleet of golf carts, which include the Shark Experience, an interactive GPS giving dynamic distances and touchscreen interaction to help you play your best. Plus, with Bluetooth, radio, and surround sound, you can enjoy yourself between holes too. Book online at CanyonRiverGolfClub.com. Missoula's best golf, Canyon River. Hey folks, Ryan Tutel here, and I'm with Josh from the Advocates Injury Attorneys. Josh, if our listeners have been injured in an accident, how can you help?
We're here to help you after a car accident by negotiating with insurance companies, recovering lost wages if you have any, and even getting you into a rental car if you need one. Call us today for a free consultation, and we'll get started helping you right away.
If you need help, get a hold of the Advocates. Call Josh at 640-4444 or online at montanaadvocates.com. You deserve an advocate.
This is Mike Nugent with Berkshire Hathaway Home Services. Berkshire Hathaway provides Western Montana with full-time real estate professionals for you whenever you need us. Our reputation as the state's most knowledgeable and available real estate group has helped build unmatched trust in the Garden City and statewide. If you have been thinking of making a real estate move in the short or long term, give me a call. No pressure, no expectations. Just professional opinions and service at whatever pace you are comfortable with. Give me, Mike Nugent, a call today, 531-1802. And remember, every question is good to ask.
Springtime is the time to buy a new Polaris off-road vehicle. During the spring sales event, rebates go as high as $1,500 and financing is as low as 3.99%. Live your life wide open in a high-performance RZR. Tackle anything from mountains to mud holes on a legendary Sportsman ATV. Get more done with a hard-working Ranger, or take on any task or trail in a versatile Polaris General. Whatever you're looking for, now is the time to take your pick from the off-road's best-selling lineup. See Polaris.com or your Polaris dealer for rebates up to $1,500 and financing as low as 3.99% APR for 36 months during the Polaris Spring Sales event at Kurtz Polaris. Kurtz Polaris at 2904 West Broadway in Missoula and Highway 83 in Sealy. Recreate the right way with Kurtz Polaris, online at kurtzpolaris.com. Offer valid in U.S. through 5/31/19 on new 2015 through 2019 vehicles. Subject to credit approval. Offers vary by model. See dealer for details. Always wear a helmet. Never drink and ride.
Tutel and Nuanez on 102.9 ESPN Radio for Missoula.
Oh, Sally can wait. She knows it's too late as we're walking on by. Her soul slides away, but don't look back in
Who's this, Oasis?
What is the problem with Oasis?
I don't know. You tell me.
They're English. Coulter hates all things English. Wonder who he's going to root for in the Women's World Cup semifinal. It's Tutel Nuanez, 109 ESPN Radio. We are broadcasting live from the Kurtz Polaris studios. Kurtz Polaris at 2904 West Broadway in Missoula, Highway 83 in Sealy, online at kurtzpolaris.com. If you missed anything in the show, we got you covered on the podcast. You can get the podcast anywhere you want it. Anywhere you get your podcast, you get the Tutel and Nuanez podcast. Rate it, review it, listen to it. We appreciate it. Click on the links. Check out what Blackfoot's got going on. And also, our thanks, appreciation for putting it up there to the Wingate by Wyndham Hotel. I misspoke. I thought Switzerland had beat Norway. It is, in fact, England. They had a little icon that was there, and I foolishly attempted to guess who it was. But for what it's worth, the English beat Norway 3-0 in the second quarterfinal of the Women's World Cup. And so England, will face the United States, who won 2-1 over host France in front of over 45,000 people today. Megan Rapinoe scored in the 5th minute, very early on, off a set piece, and then scored in the 65th minute as well. The United States was up 2-0 at that time. France did get a late goal in the 81st minute, but was unable to get the equalizer. How am I doing with my soccer vocab? Pretty
You are
good.
doing great.
But an exciting game, a loud game. I thought the atmosphere. I watched about 60 minutes of this game today, and I thought that the atmosphere and the crowd was outstanding. And I thought the action was really good. I found it to be higher paced than most of the men's games I've seen, with a lot more attacking going on. Now, I think that is largely a product of an early goal. Sometimes when teams can go back and forth and be very interested in just having possession in games that are tied, and when before somebody's scored and things along those lines. But when Rapinoe puts a goal in very early, now all of a sudden, France is like, all right, we got to go. We got to press a little bit, even though there's a lot of time. We got to press a little bit, and then the United States kind of counterattack and that kind of thing. So I thought it was an up and down game. I thought it was a lot of fun, and congratulations to the United States, and again a multi-goal game, and the only two goals for the United States coming from Rapinoe today, and the U.S. women's national team in to the semifinal. And again, as I mentioned earlier, their 10th consecutive World Cup victory, which ties an all-time record with Norway. So if they were to beat England, they would stand alone atop the record books in terms of consecutive World Cup victories.
These girls are taking the sports world by storm right now, and I think it's an incredibly cool story. This has been the golden era of soccer for in the United States for women. I mean, the defending World Cup champions, they've won multiple World Cups over the last 15 or so years, and look like they have the inside track at least to win another. And the star power led by Megan Rapinoe as well as Alex Morgan, I think it rivals any team of any sort right now in America. And I think that the fact that Megan Rapinoe has chosen to take a stand, I mean, there's all sorts of social and political elements to this as well. I mean, Megan Rapinoe is an openly gay woman who, during Pride Month, is using this as the ultimate platform. And she's not only doing it with her own forms of protest, her own forms of being outspoken, but she's also doing it by absolutely destroying this tournament. I mean, she's
carrying the team.
She's got 4 goals in the last 2 games. She's, I think, the first woman since 2007 to have back-to-back multi-goal games in the World Cup,
right?
Which is just astounding all in itself. But I think that the fact that she is on the world stage and She is representing on the world stage, and she's using this as a platform. I think it's amazing, and I think that the fact that so often we've seen this a lot in sports. I don't want to politicize this thing too much, but we've seen the entire controversy with the national anthem in the NFL, and we've seen just all the intricacies of the way that race relations work in pro sports or lack thereof, and just the way that some of these other pro athletes have tried to take a stand. And there's been an element of a lack of support from the people around them. And when Colin Kaepernick was kneeling when he's playing for the San Francisco 49ers, there's not very many people supporting him. There weren't people necessarily within the organization that were degrading him or anything like that, but everybody was just kind of saying, hey, that's his choice. I'm over here. That's all. I think the thing that's so much different about this is that, first of all, this could be considered a massive distraction, and the United States women's national team has not let it become a distraction whatsoever. And secondly, they have full-fledged support. Every time any one of her teammates is asked about her, anytime her coach is asked about her, it is, she's our leader. She is our captain. We go as Megan goes. There is no controversy here. And I think it's an unbelievable story.
Yeah, well, I mean, and the thing, too, is that when the individual is the one who's performing on the field or on the court or whatever it is, the way that she is in this, it's obviously not a distraction. If that weren't to happen, then all of a sudden you'd say, well, get off of Twitter or whatever it would be. I don't know what the backlash would be as far as that goes, but it's so interesting how well you get carried along when you're winning, and particularly when you're playing well in wins on a big stage. And they certainly are, and she did it again today, and very impressive. And it'll be an exciting game because they go ahead and they beat the host country, and not just the host country, but France, the host country, which is obviously a soccer-crazy nation, and obviously drew hugely. I mean, again, almost 46,000 people in Paris for this soccer game. Now, who do you get? England. I mean, you got to go up against the English. You had a 3-0 win against Norway. By the way, the head coach of the United States women's national team, Jill Ellis, said, quote, "That was the most intense match I have ever been a part of. A win's a win in the World Cup. I haven't seen many pretty games in a World Cup. We trained for a back five for moments like this. France are an incredible team. The surge from the fans was intense, like a tsunami. To have flexibility and to know what card we needed to play at each particular moment, I credit the players. They've taken everything on. Tactics are tactics, and if they help you get a result, fair play." So there's the comments after the game. The other two quarterfinals, which are coming up, the first one is Italy versus the Netherlands and Germany versus Sweden, and the winner of those two games will then play each other, and then obviously you're in the championship. So, but a big deal, and especially happening as the first game in Paris. So I think it kicked off at about noon Mountain Time today, and there were some people out and about, I know, looking for this game, and I think that's just going to continue to draw more and more people right up to the championship to come out and watch this, and it's fun, man. I've said this how many times, but the World Cup, men's, women's World Cup, I enjoy it, man. I enjoy watching soccer when it's sort of national on one hand and also the highest level. I mean, I think this is, World Cup men's and women's, this is as good as soccer gets, when you can pull the best of the best. And maybe on a Champions League team or something like that, when you've played X number of games together and maybe you have that rapport of teammates that you don't generate as much because you're just being pulled together for one tournament. But when you talk about the level of talent that's on display, I think it is the highest level, and it's certainly the most prestigious soccer tournaments that exist, and I find it to be totally compelling. And one thing that I continue to like about it is the soccer is obviously what it's all about, front and center. But it's also because soccer is the global game, that the buy-in that you have and the truly global nature of the participants in terms of fans and people, and the cross-pollinization culturally of what you get at World Cup games from different teams, I think is really, really cool. And that's something to me that is really, really fun, that you can, that there is. So, when you talk about football, that's an American game. When you talk about baseball, certainly it's an American game. You can start to get into Latin America and maybe, something like Japan. cricket. You can get into India, maybe some of the Southern Hemisphere countries and so forth. Soccer is the one that you go, okay, everybody in, everybody, and that I think is pretty neat. And I don't know of anything else that does that. I really don't. I think soccer is pretty unique. You could say the Olympics as an overarching thing, but that's 2 weeks, and it's so, that's still very segregated or separated in terms of what countries are good in competing in what particular events very often. And so this is where it's more singular in terms of one single tournament, and everybody's taking a look at it and excited about it and watching it. I think it's compelling to me.
Me as well. What are you up to this weekend?
Well, it's a good question. Why?
I don't know. I was just wondering. Just asking.
Well,
just blaring our social lives on the radio for the last 90 seconds of our week.
I had big plans for the 4th of July. I was going to go on a trip, see some friends, do the thing. Tina says, you know what? How about instead we just put shiplap up in the camper? So, that sounds like a pretty significant downgrade, for a 4th of July weekend to be elbow deep in paint. But it's what she wants to do. She wants to turn the thing around. I applaud her work ethic. So now, perhaps this weekend, we may go up to the lake tomorrow.
Very nice.
A little overnighter. What are you doing?
Kicking off the weekend, we're kicking off our promotion, Windermere Brothers Brewing in town. We got now, look at registration boxes, got them all over town. We got eight locations, including the Iron Horse, the Press Box, Reds, Stockman's, Katie O'Keefe's, Paradise Falls, Locals. So go check out those places. Look for the Grizz registration box. It just says football ticket giveaway. You can register to get sent to the Oregon-Montana football game September 14th. We'll be doing social media postings. We'll have remote broadcasts all throughout the months of July and August from various bars leading up to this game. And you can come listen to Tutel Nuanez live, and then we'll give away the tickets. Must be present to win. But go look for those. Brought to you by Windermere Brothers Brewing. And you can check out that American Hefeweizen on tap all over town as well.
Tommy, what about you? You still sitting back there? You up to anything this weekend?
Yeah, I'm going to be kicking around on this satellite receiver, having some sample rate conversion problems on this thing. So I'm going to be working on that. I'm going to be geeking out.
Two places I forgot to mention that also have registration boxes, Fuddruckers and the Desperado. Can't leave them off.
Conversion rate on the satellite. Tommy, what are you going to play us out with? Oh, okay. That's all right. I can go out. See, now we found some common ground, right? We're all good with Gaga, right? Around here?
I've been here 2 hours too long. Bye.
Thank you, Simon. Boys and girls, enjoy the weekend. Osprey baseball, international baseball, Sunday morning, 7 a.m. Yankees Sox from London on ESPN Radio. Coming up, 15 minutes. Osprey, Billings, game 2 of 3. Enjoy. Have a great weekend. See you on Monday. ESPN Radio, SWX Montana.
Alpine Touch has been providing you with the distinct seasonings you know and love for decades. Now, Alpine Touch has something to help you unleash the freshness of all the delicious flavors you need to spice up any meal. Check out Alpine Touch's new coarse grinds, unleashing the fresh taste of the garlic pepper or all-purpose seasonings to please any nose or taste bud. Coarse grinds can be purchased by the pound at retail locations around the state or at alpinetouch.com. Use the code ESPN10 at checkout to get 10% off any online order. Alpine Touch, Montana's special spice.
Montana's first and only indoor urban axe throwing facility is open and ready for you to get your axe down here. Lumberjacks Throwing Company, located kitty corner to Draftworks Brewing, is the perfect spot for dates, team building, bachelor parties, or just to blow off some steam after work. Their axe coaches are here to teach you the safety and technique of axe throwing and to get you sticking the axe in no time.